Here we go. Ready for another Money Moves with Jon C and Wendy Lee. Welcome, Wendy. Hope you're doing great.
Doing amazing.
I know. Welcome to what feels like August out there. It's been crazy this past week with the heat and humidity and all that stuff. We went literally from night. It was like spring into like, okay, boom, August, summer's here. Let's do it. Let's do it. So
from like high 70s, low 80s to 90 and 100. Yeah.
To walking on the sun in the jungle, something like that. I don't know what it is. But today we've got some exciting stuff. We're actually going to be talking about debt. I mean, you guys out there have seen the craziness that's going on. The official inflation rate's at 8.5%. It's a lot higher. And with what's going on in the market, your 401k, everything else, one of the big questions I'm getting, and I know, Wendy, we've talked about this as well, is what about my debt? Here's the answer. You need to get rid of it sooner rather than later. And we're going to talk about the best ways to do that and which is the best way and which is kind of a not so great way. So we're going to talk about that in just a few seconds. So do me a favor. Tell everybody that you know that Black Swan Money is getting ready to get started with Wendy Lee and Jon C. And we'll start our conversation here in about 30 seconds. And we are back. I'm not going to make the comment of the gladiator, but I'm thinking it. Everybody knows I'm thinking it when I see that. So today, let's talk about everybody's favorite subject. Everybody wants some of it. Debt, right? No, not at all, right? Debt sucks. But, it is what it is, especially with things getting crazy out there and stuff getting so flipping expensive. A lot of people are racking up debt. But I'm going to tell you right now, with everything that's around the corner, and if you look off into the horizon, you can see dark storm clouds. And guess what that means?
Get out of debt.
Well, get out of debt. Yeah. It's the storm's coming. The storm's coming. The financial storm is coming. I don't know how you tied that to debt, but that's great. So that leads me to our conversation today of debt, right? So, you look at all the kinds of debt out there, and we're not going to talk about, what debt you have. But if you've got debt, you need to get rid of it, and you want to get rid of the revolving debt and the fixed debt and things like that. Revolving debt, credit cards, right? Your fixed debt, those are the personal loans, things like that. Student loans, that's another fixed in debt. And there's student loan programs out there, those forgiveness programs. So if you're curious about that, type in student loans in the comments down below. We'll get you some information. You can kind of go from there on that. But let's talk about the traditional ways of credit card debt. I mean, I've shared my personal story. At one point in my life, I had $60,000 in credit card debt, credit card and some, personal loans and stuff like that. It wasn't all credit cards, but, still $60,000 in debt. And that wasn't a car. That wasn't a mortgage. That was just debt.
Yeah.
Right.
Consumer debt. Yeah.
Yeah. Consumer debt. And, if I would have called into certain radio shows, I would have been crucified on air. But I didn't. And I figured out, what I need to do. I'm not naming names, but I figured out what I needed to do. And that's one of the things I want to talk. So there are actually 4 baseline strategies to pay off your debt and to get out of debt. And I'm going to tell you right now, I mean, imagine, if you will, what it would feel like. Just close your eyes and let it fall over you. What it would feel like if you had absolutely no debt. Other than, maybe your mortgage and your utilities and stuff. I mean, what would that feel like? What would that feel like to you, Wendy? I mean, I know you've got a lot of money moves going on, but you may be debt free. I don't know. But, imagine what that would feel like to the average person out there.
Yeah. I mean, on average, I feel like the people we talk to, have payments, debt payments around the $1,000 mark, sometimes $2,000-$3,000.
Yeah, $3,000 in monthly debt.
Yeah. And to have that gone, that's like major pay raise right there.
Yeah. I mean, imagine what that would do to your bottom line. I mean, it's huge, right? So the question is, okay, I get it, John, but I'm already here. Now, what the hell do I do? Okay. So the first way, and before I go into this too, I'm a big fan of, well, let me rephrase this right, because it makes you sound weird. I'm a big fan of paying for lessons, right? Not that you don't get through, there's the candy or the carrot or the stick, right?
Right.
People learn better when they go through a painful process. And I'm not talking necessarily physical pain, but it was like, oh man, it stressed me out, things like that. And that was one of the things where I got to a point where my debt was stressing me out so bad. This is several years ago, but it was stressing me out so bad. I mean, it was like, oh my gosh. And I feel like I couldn't stop working and this and the other. And then I got out of debt and it was like, oh my gosh, it was just such a huge relief. But I remember that pain that was involved. And again, it wasn't physical pain, but that stress, that worry, stuff like that. And I'm never going back there.
Right. Well, we're driven by pain or pleasure, and the pain's typically stronger.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so that's what we're talking about, folks. So don't think we're talking about, cracking the whip or whatever. And we're definitely not going to crucify anybody on air or anything like that, which I've heard radio gurus do that. Right. But it's one of those things that it happens. First of all, don't beat yourself up that you let it happen, but learn the lesson and embrace that stress and everything that you're feeling, because that's part of the learning tool. Right. So the question then becomes, okay, how the heck do I get rid of this stuff? Right. So my big number one go-to, and I love this, is the debt snowball. Okay. You've heard it from the different gurus out there. They didn't invent it. This has been around a lot longer than they have. But it's the debt stack or debt snowball. And there's also a debt avalanche. Okay. And there's a little bit of a variation on both of those different methods, but they both have the same strategy. Is basically, in the debt snowball, I'm going to take my debts, regardless of what the interest rate is. I'm going to take my debts and stack them smallest to tallest, and then make the minimum payments on everything. And then what extra can I pay? $100, $200, $500 extra a month. I'm going to put it all on that lowest balance card. And then I'm going to snowball that $500 plus the minimum payment from that first card when it's all paid off onto the second card. And it goes there. There's a great resource out there, vertex42.com, vertex42.com. We'll put the link in the chat. But they've got a great little calculator. It's free for you to use. And if you need help, some guidance on that, reach out to us. Just type debt stack or debt snowball down in the comments, and we'll circle back and get you some information. But it's a great resource to do it. And I don't know, that's what I did to get out of debt, and I loved it. I don't know, have you done that, Wendy, or have you ever used a debt stack or looked at it?
Yeah, currently using it.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, so what are your thoughts?
My own experience, and then watching what we do with clients, I'm amazed actually, because I've known about this for a while and have used it in the past. And so I just assumed everybody knew that was the best way to pay off debt. And then we start talking to people, and I'm amazed at how many people pay just a little bit more than the minimum payment on everything.
Yeah.
And they're going to be stuck there forever. And so I love the power of the debt snowball and seeing it, like you said, it's vertex42.com.
Yeah. VERTEX, the number 4, the number 2.com. Right. That's it right there. There's the link. So thank you. Yes.
So when you put all the information in that sheet, it shows you, hey, here's how you pay these things off, and you actually see it. You get out of debt so much quicker.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing.
I had a credit card. I threw my dad a 50 at a surprise party, and he's 65 now. Okay, so this is 15 years ago. And I put like $3,000 on a credit card. I didn't have it to pay at the time. And I just paid like a little bit more than the minimum payment. Guys, it's like took me 10 years to pay that thing off, which totally different place in my life now. And I would never do that now. But that's where most people are sitting, is they're just paying a little bit more than the minimum. And you're going to have that debt forever. So seeing it in the debt stack and how quickly you can actually get out of debt is really powerful.
And plus it gives you a specific plan for each month and things like that. So again, but that's what, like you said, most people do. They'll pay an extra $50, $75 on each card, and it moves everything forward like molasses, right? Whereas you put it all on minimum payments because you want to keep your credit square, right? Minimum payments on everything, and then all the extra money on that lowest card, and it goes, and it's amazing what it does. So that's my go-to. That's my favorite one. Now, the drawback of that is it's not immediate, and we live in a YOLO, immediate satisfaction kind of environment, right?
Yeah.
And so people, I want the easy way out. What's the quickest way? Well, the quickest way means typically less pain, so less of a lesson. So you see a lot of people that go out and, they'll consolidate the credit cards, right? Which is kind of the number 2. They'll consolidate it onto a larger credit card. Well, there was no pain in that. It's like, oh, okay. And my payment went down. My minimum payment went down because we're monthly payment mindset in middle class. Get out of that. And so you move it over to a larger card. Well, the problem is that credit card still has a higher interest rate. Or if you roll it into like a signature loan, right, an unsecured loan, which has a lower payment, lower interest rate, usually a 5, 6, 7 year term. Oh, that wasn't very bad at all. It lowered my payment. There's no pain.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is, and I've seen it time and time again, folks. So I'm speaking from experience here. They do what? What
Go
happens?
back and charge up those cards that they just got rid of balance on.
Exactly. So now they have the loan.
Plus.
And then all the balances again. And I tell you, I've seen it in over half the cases that I've worked with over a long period of time that didn't use that debt stack. Okay. And then the third way is to go out. And this is something that if you've got a home, primary residence that you've got some equity in. And right now, a lot of people have some equity. So it's a great time, if you will, to tap into that equity. You hear all these different ads and stuff like that of getting a second mortgage. Or my personal favorite out of the two of those would be a home equity line of credit, right? And that's if you're going to use your house to consolidate credit, that's a great way to do it because that would give you the pressure relief from the monthly payments over the credit cards because typically your payment's going to go down. But the problem with that is you're going to stretch it out. Okay, it's going to extend a little longer and things like that. So you've got to be very, very careful with that aspect. Okay,
yeah,
so.
And
go ahead.
I have personal experience with this one, and I want to give another warning, especially in the time that we're in right now. Home values are super high. So I actually did a home equity line of credit in 2007.
I see where you're going. Keep going.
And my home value was way up. And from what we bought the house for. So we had this line of credit. And it was awesome, right? We got this extra money that we could do things with. Well, what happened the next year is everything crashed.
Yep.
Our home value went below what we paid for our house. And until 5 years ago, I was upside down in my house. And if I were to sell it, I would have had to do a short sale.
Yep, exactly. Or come to the table with a lot of money, right? Or a combination of both. And that's what people, and this is where it's like you look at the big generation out there in the working force right now, the millennials, right? Well, in 2008, that was 15 years ago, right? Almost 15 years ago. So a lot of them were still in high school or maybe even middle school. So they don't remember any of that, right? This is, house values don't go down, right? Stock market doesn't go down, right? It's been going up the last 15. Well, guess what, folks? Yeah. History tends to do what? It tends to repeat itself. And so if you get too far into that equity and something happens, all of a sudden you're stuck in that house. You can't sell it to move or whatever. Or if you need to move for a new job or something like that, you're up, craps creek. I'll just say that. Yep. So that's the risk you run of that. Okay. So that's my third favorite way. It's not my favorite way, but if that were my options, it would be number 3 on the list. The last thing on the list would be to do a refinance. Cash out refinance on your primary, and you see this all the time. And right now, everybody who's refinanced for a lower rate has refinanced for a lower rate. And guess what? Rates have done what? Up. They've gone up and they're going to continue to go up. And so right now, all those mortgage companies out there with all that staff that they hired, they're trying to figure out how can we keep business going. So now you're seeing a big push for cash out refinances. Okay. And, that's good too. I just talked to a client a couple of weeks back that they had a bunch of credit card debt. We had talked about the debt stack and things like that. They decided on their own to go and do a cash out refinance or look into it. And so they came back and said, hey, we wanted to run this by you, which I love that they did that. They said, our payment's only going to go up $400 over our current mortgage. I said, okay, so let's do the math on that. And they didn't have a lot of credit card debt, and it's all relative. You may think this is an amazing high number. I didn't think it was that bad. They had about $35,000 in credit card debt, and they were paying about $2,000 a month for that. 35 grand in credit card debt because it was high interest and stuff like that, and all the minimum payments. I mean, it was a lot of stress for them, and rightfully so, right? But they looked at it as, wow, that $2,000 is now down to $400. Okay, great. No big deal. Well, those credit cards, the way they were paying it off in the debt stack that we did, they would have totaled, I think they would have ended up paying the 35,000 would have been about 43,000. And they would have had it paid off in about 4.5 years. Okay. With restructuring what they were currently paying, but that stress would have still been there a little bit. Right. Whereas the mortgage route, it was a 30-year mortgage, an extra $400. So you take that number, and just to do some quick math here, 400 times 30 years or 360 payments, it's $144,000. So $144,000 to pay off $35,000 in debt. And I laid it out like that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I would never do that. I'm like, well, that's what most people do though. So again, you've got to, don't look at just, the savings each month. You got to find a happy medium.
Right.
If you're stressed out, you can't sleep, and you're like, I don't know how we're going to make it, and you don't want to live like that. So maybe the cash out refinance is your best option, but it's like number 4 on the list. Okay. Now, the other option I suggested to them is, okay, well, maybe we find a happy medium, and they still had 28 years left on their mortgage. What about a 20-year mortgage? And so they were looking at that. I don't know what the answer is, but because they haven't come back to me yet, but that 20-year mortgage, I'm sure they would have still saved probably $1,000 a month. Okay. So the pressure would have been definitely alleviated, and they would have paid their house off 8 years sooner than they would have on their current mortgage. Okay. That makes me feel a little better. I don't know. What are your thoughts on all that, Wendy? That was
Well, I mean, so I get like both sides of it, right? The day-to-day stress of like not having enough money after the month, right? Like, or having more month than money. Is that how you say it? Right? Like that's stressful. Like I get it.
Well, especially with groceries the way they are, with gas the way it is right now.
It's insane. And most people's expenses have gone way up, or they're cutting way back on things. And so like, I get that, but what I love about what you do and what you share and what you teach is to look at the big picture, right? Like you said, it's not just the monthly payment. Like, what's this going to do long term, right? Same thing. And that's why we have to grow our knowledge and be empowered to make good decisions, having all the information, not just what's the monthly payment, not just what's the interest rate, not just, I mean, I was talking about this today with somebody that, when you and I were talking about, had I, from the sale of my house and the sale of my business one year, I thought, oh, this is how much money I had I invested it the right way, or, put it in one of those, protected asset class accounts, it could have doubled twice in the time frame between now and retirement, and been, $600,000 or whatever. But instead I blew through it in, less than a year. And so it's like, we're such short-sighted most of the time on what makes us feel good today and what gets this year or the next year. And we forget to look long-term. And that's the thing that I'm there's no like right or wrong decision when it comes to this stuff, like you do what you need to do, but be empowered and make educated decisions looking at short-term and long-term consequences.
Exactly. Make the educated decision what's right for you. Right. And you got to look at all of it. I mean, you think about it, it's like rent to own. Like a lot of people use rent to own. Well, everybody knows that, hey, it's only $30 a week or $40 a week, right, for that TV. Well, you end up paying 3 or 4 times what that TV is actually worth when it's all said and done. And so it's just that on a larger scale. Yeah. And so again, that's why I like the debt stack. You're in debt. I get it. You get it. It happened. Don't beat yourself up about it, but let's do something about it and start running the numbers. And that's why I like, so just to kind of recap, best way to get out of debt, the debt snowball, hands down. It's going to save you the most money. It's going to be a little painful, but again, it's going to be a short period of time. Usually 3-4 years, you're out of debt completely. Then you add the mortgage into it. Imagine having everything, you include your mortgage in that, being debt free in a mortgage. That's a whole nother video we're going to do. I'm not a fan of paying off the mortgage early. Time it with retirement. We'll talk more on that later. The second thing is the consolidating into a larger credit card or an unsecured loan, like a signature loan, right? The third way is the HELOC, and the last way you want to do it, especially with rates rising, is the cash out refinance, right? There's a cash out refinance. So that's it. That's my 2 cents. Wendy, I don't know if you have anything else to add on that.
No, I love it. I think it's, like I said, it's great to have this knowledge to be able to make educated decisions. As long as you know all aspects of the decision you're making, do what's best for you.
Yeah, right. It's a pillow test, but know what else is out there,
Yeah.
and know all the facts, right? And then you're empowered to make the right decision for you and your
Absolutely.
family. So that's it for this week, folks. Hopefully you got something on Money Moves. If you did, do us a favor, give us a thumbs up. Come on, help us with those YouTube algorithms, and subscribe. And better yet, make a comment. Tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like, or tell us a topic you want to hear.
Yeah.
And we'll get it on here. I mean, there's a lot of questions out there. We'll do the research and everything, give you an answer, because if you're thinking it, I guarantee thousands of others are too. So that's it. Thanks again. We'll see you next week, every Tuesday at 10 o'clock Central, 11 o'clock Eastern. I think that's 8 Mountain, and I don't know what time that is in Guam. But anyway, join us, and we'll see you then. Have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.